Hello, everyone. It's Eric Wolf again, and it is 1:30 p.m. in London. And as mentioned in our previous session, we are swapping places. So Roberta Garibaldi's presentation on wineries will take place tomorrow during the scheduled slot for Matthew Stone, and Matthew will be presenting now his topic, which is getting young people interested in learning about food and drink tourism. So without further ado, Matthew, I'll let you take it away.
Perfect. Get my screen shared right here. Wonderful. All right, my topic is getting young people interested in learning about food and drink tourism. I'm a professor at California State University, Chico, and I'm a researcher for the World Food Travel Association. And I do want to acknowledge that our university, as well as my home, sits on the native land of the Machupta peoples in Northern California. We started this research with the 2020 State of the Food Travel Industry Report. And if you haven't seen that report yet, you can get that through the World Food Travel Association for free. And we really were looking at, so we know this, that our primary purpose of a marketing plan is to promote food and to promote tourism to our area. And quite often our food tourism strategy is part of that marketing plan.
Matthew, seeing part of your slides.
What's the question?
We're only seeing part of your slides.
Okay, then I will do it that way. Does that work better?
Yeah, we can see the whole thing now.
Oh, awesome. So we'll do it that way. Perfect. Yeah, it's just the way it promotes. So as far as destination marketing organizations have a marketing plan that might include food tourism strategy. Some destinations like Finland and Ireland have a specific food tourism strategy. I'm a believer that the food tourism strategy should be its own plan. And there's reasons we need this food tourism strategy. But then also as part of food tourism strategy, it's more than just marketing. There could be an education strategy in there too. And we found out that 62% of our experts thought that residents need to know more about food and drink traditions. And then 86% of our experts in our survey agreed that hospitality and tourism employees need to know more about local food and drink traditions. The idea here is, how do we educate our visitors about our food and drink traditions if we don't know enough about them? So that's where this kind of is starting from. This importance of maintaining this food culture. Here's a quote from Eric Wolf from the UNWTO report on food tourism. In Panama, people are said to have forgotten what their local cuisine was, as international cuisine has gained so much ground. So it's wonderful that we have international cuisines and fusion cuisines, but as this happens, we kind of might lose our traditional culture. So the idea here is maintaining this local culture benefits both the locals and the visitors. Why do food tourism providers and DMOs have a role in this? Well, learning about local cuisines is arguably the fastest means through which tourists can get to know a destination and bond with locals. So really, if we want to create these memorable experiences for visitors, we need to work with our local residents also, right? It's hard to promote our regional food and drink traditions if they're not well known among the locals. And DMOs kind of have a role in this, and tourism providers, because if they don't do it, probably no one's going to do this, right? We don't necessarily have a local cultural association that's going to maintain these traditions for us. So it's very important to destinations because almost 80% of travelers learn about food and drink when they visit a destination. So they're going to learn something about our food and drink, but we need to make sure we know what we're teaching them, that we are teaching them what is actually traditional and local and things like that. So one of our first steps really is to identify our local traditions. Learning is a motivator to travel for food and drink. So we heard that from other presentations as well. Cultural experiences are part of the reasons we travel, as well as a benefit of our travel. So people are traveling for food and drink. It's motivating them to do these things. All right. So if we can identify this local food and drink heritage, then we can promote and retain this local food heritage among the locals. Then we can spread that word to the visitors who are coming in. So our research method is based on stakeholder theory. We surveyed stakeholders across the world, and we had both primary and secondary stakeholders in food tourism. If we look at the stakeholders in food tourism, we pretty much know who these are. It's the tourism businesses, it's the trade groups and associations, researchers, media, different consultants, and marketers are in here as well. We didn't talk to consumers here. This is a survey we only did to people who are related to food travel businesses. And of these respondents, we had about 55 respondents from around the world, and they were split between primary, which means they're in the food travel business, tour operators, food tour operators, lodging businesses, chefs. And then 26 were secondary, and that's people like me. I'm not a food tourism operator, but I do research in food tourism. So that's things like media, academics, those type of things. And so we really looked at the theme. So we asked these people, asked everybody, how can we get more young people interested in maintaining their local food heritage and culture? So that's what we did, and that's what gets to us our results. There's some very traditional Finnish foods on there: reindeer sausage and pickles and potatoes. And so, like what we said is, we asked the people, how do we get young people interested in, and how can we get younger residents interested in learning about food and drink culture? So the first one, and this is not surprising, they said formal education was a great way to do this. They really said that we need to get food education into the schools. Again, you see this is not really the role of the destination marketing organization, but you see how they can really make a difference in this thing. And one of my favorite quotes is, you cannot be proud and interested in something that you don't know anything about. So our young people may not know anything about the local food and drink. So how can we teach them in the schools? We saw a lot of examples here. They can learn about local foods. Part of it's nutrition education. So, we actually do nutrition education in our schools. How can we attach nutrition education to local foods? I like that a lot. As far as cooking classes, right? We really want a hands-on education. We know that if we teach people with hands-on, they'll retain it, the knowledge for longer. So cooking classes and students sharing their own traditions. And this is where we really get that melting pot of cultures together. What my home traditions might be different than my neighbors, which is interesting as well. Field trips to local food producers and visiting markets. So the idea here is we take the kids out of the classroom and we can teach them with these different immersive activities. Connections with agriculture. For example, a lot of people I grew up in an agricultural area, but I knew nothing about agriculture. We weren't taught that in the schools. It was only if you lived on a farm, you would learn those types of things. And here in the United States, we really are interested in STEM education, that's science and technology and math and engineering, right? We want to create these science and math thinking students. Well, food does fit into that. Cooking itself has a lot of science involved in it. It connects with the history of our culture. So if I talk about history in class and it's just names and dates, it's very boring. But if I can attach to foods and cultures and talk about how people experience life in different eras through the food, I can relate that, and we can eat those different local foods and experience it that way. The idea here is a cycle of learning. So I learn about it in school and I teach it to other people later on. So if I educate young people on the traditions of the area, they're proud of their town and city and they want to pass that on to others, right? So they can actually educate their own family and friends as well about this as we're doing it. We can connect that to our own home life. Awareness is built starting at the family level about appreciating the culture of food and good eating. It creates this food culture at home that's reinforced in the schools. So we maintain our culture that way. We can see examples from around the world of this. Conroe Prairie is a historical site outside of Indianapolis, Indiana, where they talk about their history, Midwestern history through the foods. Places like Skansen in Stockholm, where the local they have bakeries and examples of historic, the way that things were cooked throughout time. So we have those different. The second idea that people had, so we have formal education, hands-on experiences and activities. And an interesting idea from one of the respondents was opening these day tours of the region to allow residents to immerse themselves as a tourist. We promote these food tour activities to visitors, but not as much to locals. Many locals don't know what's at their doorstep. And so if we create this local awareness, it really helps the visitor. That's a new idea kind of in destination marketing as well, as we have more social media, as people go to their DMOs for ideas of what to do at home. These hands-on activities can be part of classroom education, such as I said, cooking classes and demonstrations, or we can take the students outside of the classroom for these types of things. This is an example of a kid's cooking class here. And then some of the ideas that people had, things like cooking competitions. I love the idea of kids cooking competitions outside of hospitality classes, festivals and food tours, farm visits. This example here is from my university, California State University, Chico. Every year there's a Wildcat Day on the farm. And the idea here is we get people in the community and at our university out to the farm so they learn about food production and our local food history here in Northern California. We're a very rich agricultural area. So we do these different hands-on activities. Food tours, and here's an example we did at my university, is at my university, students all pay into a fund with their student fees, and we were able to use some of that student fee money to take the students on a food tour of here in Chico, where we explore different cuisines with the students. So students love that, but it also teaches them at the same time, these hands-on food tour experiences. A key to these experiences, keeping it affordable. So is there a way that people suggested having incentives to visit local farms and businesses and to experience them? So what ways can we kind of subsidize this for the young people so they become more interested? Just like our associations have student membership fees, can we have entry fees for students that might be different to encourage them to attend these different events? Third idea that came up was attaching this food interest to the interests of young people. Young people are concerned about climate change, social justice, and can we tie these to food? Taking their interest in finding overlap in the local food systems. This is one of our quotes. People brought this up in a lot of different ways. We want to, maybe I'm not passionate about food, but maybe I'm passionate about the environment. How can we connect these things together? And if I can get that connected, then it's going to help me want to learn more about these different types of things. So different ideas came up. You know, people love music and music festivals. How can I get local food education in these music festivals? Sustainability, social justice. You know, how does food play a role in social justice? And how do local foods play a role in that social justice? Diversity and underrepresented voices. The idea here is, again, all these local foods that might be brought from different immigrant groups or different cultures into the area, and kind of the way we socialize through food. So if we don't have if you're talking to young people and there's not a social element to it, it's not going to work, right? I don't just want to sit in a classroom. If I'm a young person, I want to experience it. I want to touch it and feel it. Right. These same things work for older generations as well. But the idea here is if we get young people interested now, the future will look brighter. An example is the Flow Festival in Helsinki, and of sustainability is a music festival, but it's really about food also. But every single food vendor there had to have a sustainable option and a vegan option on their menu. Young people go to this festival to see the bands, but they learn about food and sustainability while they're there also. It's one of their passions in life. This is on, again, my local food tour of Chico, California, and we went to a place called Aonami Sustainable Sushi, and we chose that example because the chef then told us how sustainability drives his operation. Another example I liked, and this is another one from Helsinki, the Amos Rex Museum. It's an art museum in Helsinki, and they did an exhibit of Karlstad is an artist around the 1930s in Helsinki. Well, he designed a cafe. Well, the cafe has since been torn down or turned into something else. So they recreated the cafe in the art museum. So you learn about and so they had the music and the foods and the art of the local time. So we were able to connect art with history, with food in that environment. So think about what activities young people are doing, and then how can we get food heritage involved in that area, right? When young people are eating food, how can they accidentally learn something while they're doing that, right? How do we create this accidental learning? Idea number 4 was about awareness and engagement. I don't need to talk a lot about this one because you know that you can't talk to young people without thinking about social media. This is not surprising to anyone here. But again, these marketing and social media efforts, kind of where they look excellent, don't they? Makes me hungry. Can look at locals as well as others, and we can educate people through these social media posts, right? Just you add one sentence in that little post, and people can learn while they're scrolling through their Instagram. And the fifth idea that really came up here is creating and inspiring careers and internship opportunities for students, right? This idea of custom-made study, research, careers. Um, this quote says, we can give them people the possibility of a profession and a career in their place of birth rather than looking for a career far away from their roots and customs. So if people learn about their local food heritage, local food culture, it makes them interested, and they learn about these career opportunities, and then they want to open food tours experiences in their local community, want to be involved in their local restaurants or local markets. So it helps people stay where they're at. Some ideas here is to create and inspire internships and career opportunities. The idea is students learn these careers exist. We can also educate them entrepreneurial skills. We can build and promote internships for them locally. Again, it keeps our cultural knowledge local. In this example is one of, again, from our food tour here in Chico, where we took students. This is an entrepreneur who opened a bakery in town. So students not just learn about the local foods, but about entrepreneurship and are inspired to do that. And they learn about the opportunities in their communities. So then we kind of recap what we looked at is the first thing we have to do is learn what our local food heritage is, right? Most of us know, but we can kind of define that food heritage. And once we kind of have defined and identified our food heritage, we need to think about ways we can get into our schools and incorporate our food heritage into this education. Whether that means getting food tour operators into classes or chefs in there, giving examples, and linking it with the different coursework, whether it be history or science or mathematics, right? We can learn math through cooking. We create hands-on experiences and make them accessible to these young travelers. We want to connect these different things of importance to the students or to younger people. Younger doesn't have to be student age. It could be anywhere from 10 to 30, right? If I'm all about sustainability or I'm all about diversity, how do we connect it to them? Create awareness through social media. And then the other thing is always make sure that these careers, jobs, entrepreneurships students learn about them from a young age. And we don't wait until they get to college to become interested in these different career areas. So it's different ways we can, again, engage young people in learning about food and kind of the role that destination marketing organizations can take in this. As part of our marketing plan for our destination, we can have a food tourism plan and also kind of a food tourism educational plan within that. Thank you so much. I can be reached at California State University, Chico, and I would love to hear any questions or feedback or further ideas on this presentation.
That's great. Thank you, Matthew. And Matthew, why don't you also type your email into the chat so people can see it for you?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Right. So I took some notes on your presentation, and let's see here. One of the challenges that I see is, well, there's a lot of talking about we should be doing this and this would be great and kids are loving this. But at the same time, we're seeing all over the world areas where sometimes younger people are turning their backs on their local cultures and they're striving for what they see on television, whether it's from the United States, from the UK, France, Japan, whatever. And I'm wondering how to achieve some kind of a balance there, because we seem to, it's the squeaky wheel that gets the grease. And we see about the disturbed youth and the graffiti and skateboarding and all of this stuff, and we don't seem to see news broadcasts about the kids that are going on, to go pet the pigs and stuff like this. So how can we elevate the importance of that in everyday life?
I have several notes that may or may not answer that. I think one is find the issues that are important. So students we see examples worldwide of the students are interested in sustainability. We on a global scale, right? I used to have my reusable straw here so we don't hurt sea turtles. But then how can I connect that to locally? So if I can take these global issues of sustainability and connect them locally, maybe it will have more impact on them, right? I'm interested in saving the world. How can eating local food help me reach that goal? And I think another, and you also asked the question about you want to see a lot of it's connecting locally. It's maybe not with a whole school, but with just one teacher or one person. Media always is looking for stories to share. And so just like we did at my university, within this one course, we do this food tour, and then we can now promote that locally, and more people see that idea and more people become interested. So it might not be, maybe schools don't see food education as important, but some teacher in that school does. And when that teacher brings into the classroom, then you've got the photos, you've got the stories, and now you can start telling these stories then on your social media and all that.
Hmm.
So once we brought the chefs into class and gotten those pictures and that video, now we can start sharing that through all the different channels, and it creates a story that way. So storytelling plays a role in it, I think, too.
How can we create more visibility though? Because I think when I have traveled, I see groups of kids sitting around Starbucks or in McDonald's, those kinds of things. I don't see huge groups of students going around with their bamboo straws and the recyclable water bottles. You don't see that. You see kids trying to be kids. And I think that the challenge is that it we all know some kids who are interested in sustainability and some school programs that are focusing on it. But at the other side, we're seeing kids just being kids. So what can we do about that?
Oh, kids being kids. Uh, well, I think when you see visitors doing that is that they weren't exposed to different foods or weren't interested. There'll always be the people who are like that when they travel. I think that if you're aware of it, it makes a difference. So I'm going to go to McDonald's when I travel because I just like to see the different McDonald's food. Um, but just the awareness at home is where it all, the idea here is the awareness at home is where it starts. So if I never learn about the importance of food, then when I travel, it's not going to be important to me. So this idea of maybe starting with home makes a big difference overall. And I think you've mentioned it before, or in one of your quotes, is like it needs to be important at home before it can be important when you travel. So I kind of think that's what I would say. Accidentally, though, I would say things like McDonald's are a way that students can accidentally learn about local food culture when they travel, because I know what McDonald's looks like at home. And when I go to France, I see that the breads are more important in McDonald's.
Do not go there. No,
Yeah,
please.
we could go that way. But again, just simple as that, the students are starting to see the differences in local cuisine. And so not promoting McDonald's as food tourism per se, but
No, definitely not. It's just it's an anomaly. Right. So we
yeah.
do have a question here. Do you have suggestions for, oh my goodness, they're going fast. Do you have suggestions of incentivizing incorporating food education in schools, especially if it isn't funded from outside the school?
What I would suggest is finding I would use the word a champion in a school. So find a teacher at whatever level you want to have, or somebody, a friend of a friend who is a teacher who can get that into their classroom. So start with one person and use that as kind of a case study and a way to roll it out bigger. And I think once people start talking about that, then the school will be more interested and the community will be more interested in that. So I would start really with just one or two people. And get some local champions involved. So find a local chef, find a local food tour operator or something like that, and then find a teacher and just start that partnership small and build it from there.
Mm. Okay, next question. Ag in the classroom and farm to school programs have been growing for the past decade. How do you see the programs you discussed connecting with these initiatives?
And I am not the expert in that. But what you're saying is true, is that getting agriculture back, I think as rural areas have realized they're losing some culture, as there are fewer farmers, that this becomes more important. I think what I would say on that one is to once you've got these ag and classroom connections, then add the other layer on, whether it is then a chef adding that layer on or cooking classes or something to connect it to the next level. So not just ag and school together, but see if we can connect everything all together.
Okay, great. Next question. In many cases, many people have an idealized vision of a farmhouse, maybe due to social media and promotion. For example, in some cases, they remain a little bit upset by the smell of animals or the fact that land may be dirty and so on. How do you deal with this idealization and make them understand the difference between reality and this ideal?
And no one really wants to know where their food comes from, right? Um, I studied at University of Illinois, and at University of Illinois, at certain times of the year, you could smell the South farms on campus, and city kids would hate the smell of the farm, but it made the university what it is today. Um, that one is almost starts at that I guess that's just starting at a younger age where people are more comfortable with it. Um, but I think that is an important thing you mentioned about reality and idealization, is that as part of these programs, we need to acknowledge that before it starts, that there's going to be this challenge, and acknowledge it before we start this program. Nothing we talk about is ideal. I'd love this ideal world where we all learned about food and travel, but it doesn't really happen.
Okay. And last question before we have a final comment as well. In the study, were there any suggestions on how to target the parents?
You know what's really, we left the question wide open and we just said, how can we get more younger people interested in learning about food and drink? And people did not mention the parents at all in this. I'm trying to think through all the responses. I haven't looked at them in a little bit. I haven't thought of it that way, but I think that's a great way also. So throw that, I will actually throw that when we look at more of putting the plans together on how to make sure parents are in there as well. Whether it be an activity they can do at home. I think there, I'm thinking about activities you can do at home with the parents, right? If the students choose to, they don't have to, but um, as well as if you're allowing students a special rate to attend festivals and that, is there a family rate or something like that? I don't think that's something we traditionally think of is bring your family to this event. So
Yeah.
that might be a way to do that.
No, I think it's good to, I mean, this is an opportunity for future research is to look at targeting the parents and how to involve the parents. But just like you were saying at the beginning, that many DMOs are pivoting and reaching out to locals now, and that is another opportunity for research because many DMOs can't. They are under law to
Mhm.
only market inbound travelers because they receive revenue from hotel taxes or other legislation that's in place. So how can a DMO pivot? Does the DMO need to create a separate parallel DMO that's funded differently that targets locals? I don't know. There's many issues there, and we do need to wrap up soon. But the last comment that I wanted to make was: Are you familiar with the New Culinary Nation program in Sweden that was around about 10 years ago?
I'm familiar with what I don't know that one particularly. I know that Sweden does a
Okay.
great job, which is why I threw them in my slides there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, in this particular program, there was five prongs that the Swedish government was trying to emphasize, and one of them was food tourism, and another one was institutional food service. So, food service in hospitals, in prisons, I believe, but also, and most importantly, here in schools and universities. And for some reason, this program was shut down. I think it was a change of government in Sweden, and the new government did not was not interested in continuing the program, which was a real shame because it was quite visionary at the time. I mean, really forward thinking, exactly how you want to develop a society, and then politics got in the way. So
It is a challenge. One thing you did mention is reaching locals. That's the joy of social media is your local people will find your Instagram feeds and those types of things. So I'm not spending any money locally, right? But they're going to see it. So
indeed.
thank you so much,
Okay,
Ed.
Matthew, thank you very much. That was excellent. Right. So if you all would now leave this room and then come back in, and we will hear from our next speaker in just a couple of minutes. Thank you all.